welcome. We are back for another episode of The Lock-In on location in Malta. We've just been playing the Malta Poker Festival. Obviously the main event of that one sponsored by Unibet Deep Sec Open. I'm here with Daryl Kearney, that's him there. Let's try and point out it right, that is the tower underneath which we were playing our poker all last week. A fantastic festival overall, 1,460 runners in the main, new record for the Malta Poker Festival. Credit to Ivonne Montealegre and Alex Henry, of course, of DSO as well, for everything they did to bring those numbers to the island. Really impressive stuff. On a personal note, and I speak for both of us here, unfortunately, not a particularly successful weekend, Darren.
No, I think we had a couple of cashes each, but they were pretty much just a dent in the sea of bullets we fired into various events.
So many bullets.
Yeah, but it was a great festival overall. The atmosphere was absolutely amazing. When I look back on my career, I never remember whether I really won or lost on a trip, unless there was a very big result in there. And I'm sure I'll look back on this fondly in years to come.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that I had a couple of cashes, because I actually only had one. I managed to cash the first one and actually make a final table, came fourth in the sort of warm-up event. They called it the Texas Classic. Thought, oh, this is great, now I'm in form, I'm ready to go, probably going to bank a load of cashes this week, but it wasn't to be in the end. And yeah, unfortunately, as Darren said, a sea of bullets followed. There was a super high roller and a high roller on the schedule, which was pretty cool actually, because that's never really been a big feature of this festival. It's always been sort of, you know, put at the sort of mid-stakes buy-in level, that sort of 550 sweet spot with like 200 quid sides and that type of thing. There was always a 1k high roller at the festival, but never as well attended as this one was. I think it got like 130, 140 runners, and then the super high roller, as they were calling it, the 2.5k buy-in, actually got 50 runners, so that was pretty impressive. Dara jumped into that one late and spun up a very nice stack to get to 6 or 7 stacks. I was in from the beginning and managed to get to 6 or 7 stacks. We were both so confident and so full of ourselves at the break with 11 or 12 left that we increased our swap and thought, we're in here, Dara, let's go big here, and about half an hour later we were both gone.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't even notice you'd gone, and then I think we were down to 10, and I was feeling pretty good as well. I was certainly above average. Yeah, but then just an unavoidable flip, which I lost. Had I won that, I would have been chip leader with 10 left, and the bubble, and only 7 paid, so it would have been a great time to apply bubble pressure.
Yeah.
I think the guy who did win that flip went on to be first or second, so it felt like one of those months where whoever won that flip was going to be in a great position. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for me this time.
Yeah, you're tilted because he won the flip against you. I'm tilted because the guy who won the tournament is actually a person that I eliminated from the tournament twice the previous day. So
that is the nature of the re-entries.
Yeah, I'm going to turn into Norman Chad here and complain about re-entry now that it specifically worked against my best interest this time round. Looking back on the festival in general as well, I want to sort of throw a little comparison across. I did have my interaction with Ivonne Montealegre, who quite rightly said she doesn't like comparisons between Malta Poker Festival and Battle of Malta, because of course she's built her own brand. In fact, she helped build that brand for a lot of years, and now this is her baby. But I think with the autumn edition of these festivals clashing now, I think actually there's quite a lot of players going to be faced with a choice. You know, they do both have their own audiences. Battle of Malta tends to get quite a lot of Italians. Yvonne's ground game seems to get a lot of Brits and Northern Irish and even Canadians and Americans, and people come from all over for her, and she really does have her feelers everywhere, which credit to her for that. But there are definitely a lot of people who want to play both, and I suppose if they're left with two choices, it's going to be interesting which way they go. I've made a lot of, I think, very valid criticisms about how Malta Poker Festival is, you know, the one that doesn't charge you too much and has still kind of maintained that 550 structure with the 4% reg admin reg fee, whereas Battle of Malta has gone up and up and up to the point that actually when you add those two fees together, it's 19.2%, Dara, which I do feel is egregious. We've often talked about the only place where you see fees that big is maybe Vegas, but they give you as much drink as you want in those places.
Yeah, you do get something for your money in Vegas for sure. I mean, a lot of people talk about the nightly deep stacks in Vegas that have a very big rate, but you know, at the end of the day, it's still only 30 or 40 bucks, and if you're getting a pile of cocktails, it can be worth your while. I think with the two festivals clashing, I mean, it's not necessarily bad for either of them. I don't think there'll be a lot of players on the island, and maybe they'll mix and match. I don't think you have to stick to one or the other completely rigidly.
True.
I think if like there's a high roller on in one, then the players who want to play at 200 can go and play the side event at the other festival. It depends on exactly how the schedules match up. I think people will probably mix and match, but largely stick to one. I mean, the two venues are very close to each other as well. I mean, for me, there's no comparison. The Malta Poker Festival is on every level. It's better than the Battle of Malta, not just the rake issue, just in terms of the vibes, the atmosphere, the organisation, all that stuff. I've had some horrendous experiences at the Battle of Malta down the years. This was my first Malta Poker Festival, and nothing but good things to say about it.
Yeah, we had a great time, and huge credit to Ivonne, obviously the people over there in Portomasso Casino, and yeah, all the staff. Shout out as well to Jason Glatzer, who I thought did a fantastic job on the updates, and he did a bit of comparing when it came to main event final table time. He looked like he was in his element there, didn't he, Dara?
Yeah, Jason really came on. I wouldn't have necessarily thought Jason was the kind of man to enjoy that role, but he was really good in that role, getting everybody hyped for the final table. And he did great live updates, as you said, through the thing. On his own, it has to be said, which is always very difficult.
Yeah.
It helps that Jason knows so many of the players, and he can get exact hand histories from them rather than relying on just happening to be at a table when a big hand is going down. So yeah, shout out to Jason, really good work.
Yeah, great work from Jason. We really appreciate him always, wherever we go and see him there. But yeah, great to see him part of this Deep Stack Open sponsored Malta Poker Festival. Well, on that note, I think we're going to leave you. We are obviously dangling over a bridge here. Don't know if that was obvious from the beginning, but yeah, a little bit precarious. Dara was a bit worried. It's a bit windy as well, that maybe we'd fall over, but we've managed to get this bit done.
Yeah, slightly concerned that David was going to do what the Scots call, I believe, doing a Michael. It's a reference to that famous time where Michael Jackson dangled his baby out a window. Was
I going to dangle you out over there? I don't know. I don't know. I have the upper body strength to save you, Dara. I think we'd be in trouble. Okay. On that note, let's find warmer pastures. Let's find a cup of coffee, or maybe even our desks. Okay, so we neglected to mention one very important detail, which is actually something very specific, I think, to this festival, which is the turnout of ladies. It gets huge numbers, actually, of women, certainly compared to almost any other festival I've ever gone to, and that translated to a great turnout in the ladies' event. Dara, tell us more.
Yeah, the ladies' event was a real success. It was hosted by Kerry Jane Craigie from the Hippodrome, and it got 84 runners, which is fairly phenomenal for a 200. I mean, to do a direct by comparison with something similar, the Battle of Malta was here a few weeks ago. Overall numbers in that festival were actually bigger, because obviously the battle has been very established and around for a while. But the ladies, which was actually a lower buy-in on that occasion, almost half what it was here, got 53 runners. So they got more than 50% extra runners for a bigger buy-in, much bigger prize pool. Without the, in theory, the Battle of Malta had the backing of GG Poker behind it, the world's biggest, self-proclaimed biggest site, and also the world's self-proclaimed biggest ladies group. So yeah, absolutely massive success. There was an amazing atmosphere at that event, and it ended up in a 5-way chop too, so 5 people went home very happy.
Yeah, great to see such great numbers, and it does translate. Like, there certainly wasn't a table all week where there wasn't a lady on it, and actually often two, which is not parity, but is getting there slowly but surely. And maybe one day, Dara, maybe we will get to equal numbers of women. It would be great to see, but it's certainly events like this and organisers like Ivonne who really push that and make that a passion project, as Ivonne has often talks about on our show actually as well. And yeah, it does translate to big numbers, and as Dara mentioned, 84 in that ladies event, phenomenal effort. And yeah, fingers crossed that just keeps growing and growing as the festival does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and a couple of other highlights for me. I did a book signing with my friend Alex O'Brien. Speaking of ladies in poker, that was a huge success. You took some great photos. Maybe we'll drop those in. And we got presented with our GPI award.
Oh, we did. Hang on.
Our latest GPI award.
Take it out of the bag, Dara. Whip it out there. It's actually very like this tower. It's got this kind of tower shape to it. Here we go. Look at that bad boy. Whoa!
Now, unfortunately, there's only one of them, so custody talks are already ongoing. I think I'm going to leave this one here in Malta, just because I'm not sure I want to explain to customs officials in 2 airports what exactly this is.
It does have a kind of a sex toy shape to it.
Yeah.
But look at that with the tower. Look at that. Look. Oh, very, very nice. Shout out, I have to say, to obviously the GPI, Hendon Mob lads, Hans, Kev Matt, and then of course Eric Denny and Roland Boothby, who presented us with this. I dropped that photo in as well. We obviously didn't make the trip there a couple of months ago to Las Vegas, nor will we probably ever make the trip to Las Vegas for an envelope opening. Sorry guys, but yeah, it was great to have it presented to us here by the guys who do such a great job. And they had an event at this tournament as well. The Hendon Mob got really big numbers too. Lovely to see those collaborations. Absolutely love seeing those guys show up at festivals here, and hope to have them back at another one soon. Okay, so a week or so has passed since the Malta Poker Festival. Dara is back in Dublin. I'm back at my desk. And from one festival to another, Dara, we were supposed to be joined right now by the head honcho of the festival series, which is obviously also a Unibet sponsored extravaganza taking place this year in Rozvadov, Bratislava and Malta. This is when I was supposed to be saying welcome back to the show, Franke von Zweiberg, but I'm not going to be able to say it, Dara.
Yeah, Frankie is ill-disposed, as they say. So no Frankie, unfortunately. So our viewers are going to have to put up with just the two of us. Throw back to when we started, actually. But most of these on the road ones we've done have been just the two of us as well. So
exactly. Well, look, I'm conscious that I've done a decent amount of Rozvadov bashing down the years, but one of the festival stops is going to be in Rozvadov, Las Vegas. So I'm now contractually obliged to give an opportunity to make a counter argument. Now, again, I would have given this to Frankie. Maybe he could make the best counter argument. But Dara, in his absence, what kind of counter argument can you make against my usual bashing of Rozvadov?
well, I mean, the main problem with Rozvadov is just where it is. It's kind of like middle of nowhere. But once you get into the casino itself, it's incredible, and it's just a very well set up for poker. The place is pretty much almost entirely devoted to poker, so it's a very different experience from playing in most casinos in Europe, where you're looking at slot machines and roulette wheels and all that stuff all the time. It's actually a very nice casino. The food there is very good as well. If you can forget about where you are, and if you never leave the casino, then that is a good place. It's a little bit tricky to get to as well. Like the two nearest airports, Prague and Nuremberg, are quite a distance away, and you do have to get a shuttle there. But as I said, once you get there, it's actually a very pleasant place to play. And I have been there several times. Don't have quite the same negative view as you have of the casino, but the place certainly doesn't have much to recommend it besides the casino.
Yeah, not a huge amount. I'm personally going to remain resolute and use the package, which I won on Unibet actually for the festival series, for either Bratislava or Malta, but they are flexible. And I suppose that's one thing I can do here is I can emphasize their flexibility. You can win them via Unibet's live satellite tree, which culminates on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central European time, when we guarantee 2 packages. That might go up to 3 packages as we get closer to some of those events. Moving on to some news now. Last week, Poker News reported on a WSOP rule of which I'm pretty sure players are unaware. At least I was. Former Chip Race newsman Ian Simpson tweeted about this one the other day. And it's also, I suppose it's got to be said here that it's one of those hard to implement, nigh on impossible to police rules, which we don't like. Actually, I should point out here that this is more news work than I ever saw Ian do as a newsman, trying to inform the public about this one. According to the Poker News article, 8 WSOP rules you didn't know existed. In the section on communication, the WSOP rules state that all cell phones must be silenced during tournament play, and although players are allowed to use their phones at the table, providing they're not in a hand, a special rule is in place for texting someone at the same table. In short, if you attempt to communicate with somebody at the same table as you via text, you're both disqualified. Now, Dara, straight over to you on this. It goes without saying that any attempt to collude or share cards via text is a clear disqualification, even an 86ing offence. But I will admit that there are definitely some examples of actually you and I pinging one another whilst at the same table. In fact, at the Malta Poker Festival last week. We were going back and forth about potential guests we were going to have for upcoming shows. At one point, I think I sent you the visual assets connected to the Chip Race series, which is, of course, this week. 200k guaranteed, by the way, and it's currently on Unibet. As it was prime time, I wanted you to tweet those things out, so I was messaging you. Didn't figure the table wanted to hear about that. We were also in a group chat with 2 other people who were on different tables, but we were making dinner plans with them. So again, kind of, messages were going into that group chat. Now, I've always assumed that I would be protected in that spot against any accusations someone might make if they thought I was up to skullduggery there, by being willing to show my phone and show the messages from you being completely benign, about making dinner plans or whatever it would be. But apparently, according to this rule, that wouldn't necessarily be enough. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is this story I haven't paid too much attention, but I have become aware of it because obviously it's created quite a furore. Just so I understand, this isn't a new rule. This has been there for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been there, and I guess that implies it's been there the last couple of times we were in Vegas, where I don't think we were ever at the same table, but had we been, that is something we may have done not knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I haven't heard of anybody actually being disqualified for this rule. So it feels like it's just something they have there as a fallback in case there is a suspicion that people are communicating and they can't prove it, but they can say, well, clearly you're messaging each other. That's enough to disqualify you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it feels like a little bit of a nothing burger to me because if it hasn't been enforced, and it would be very difficult to enforce without taking people's phones off them, and then that raises the question whether they even have the right to do that. Until they actually start disqualifying people for this rule, I'm probably not going to worry too much about it. I mean, I wouldn't really have any reason to text people. But we've sat beside each other at tables. We did in Malta recently. Jason Glasser took a great photo. We talk to each other in low tones when we're not in hands. What's different about that from sending messages to each other? I would have thought that you can't be on your phone when you're not in a hand rule is sufficient protection. Even if I'm texting you, oh, I just folded the ace of clubs, which I would never do, by the way. But even if I was doing that, you can't look at your phone when you're in a hand. Maybe I could give you that information afterwards, but I could also convey that information to you verbally. It just seems like a bit of a nothing rule to me, that isn't getting enforced, and people are getting worked up at now because Ian Simpson has tweeted about it, and we all know, like, once Ian says something, people take it seriously always. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe we'll go to WSOP and a couple of hundred people will be disqualified under this rule. Now that the WSOP have also been made aware of it, thanks, Eni. But because it's not like their TDs don't like to enforce rules.
Certainly not,
as we know full well. But yeah, when they start disqualifying people, I'll start worrying about this rule.
Oh, fair enough. Well, look, our good friend Kat Arnsby took a closer look at the rule and tweeted, "The TD has the power to eliminate you and your friend if your phone is out and you cannot definitely prove to that TD that you were not texting each other." The poker Karen called the wording vague and ambiguous. So yeah, look, I think it's probably one of those ones, as you say, Darragh, it's on the books, probably unpoliceable, unenforceable, and therefore never really used. But I suppose there could be accusations made. Probably more likely to see something like this, I'm going to guess, in a smaller knit high roller circuit. Not suggesting that I was going to say, not suggesting that any of the 25k players would do something like this, but actually within that community there are definitely people who would do these kinds of things. But it seems to me almost more likely that it could happen in that kind of environment rather than in, like, again, what are the chances of you being sat beside your mate with 10,000 people in the field? It has happened. It can happen, but I think probably maybe more important for that. Next up, the Venom, America's Card Room flagship tournament, the Venom, concluded last week. It must be said it was mired in some controversy. Poker NBoss and DTO creator Dominik Nitsche took it down for 1.8 million. Phenomenal score by him. Before I get to the controversy part, let's quickly talk about Dom, who gave me some quotes actually for an article I wrote about this, one of which I know caused a bit of confusion. He said how it was his biggest score ever. It turns out that winning 1.8 million in a 2650 tournament is better than winning 100k. Sorry, is better than winning 3.5 million in 100k. Dara, can you explain to the several people in my DMs and in the replies of my various messages with this article, people questioning Dom's math here? What's going on?
Well, I assume he means he had a smaller percentage of himself in the 100k. You know, we all know Dom's a baller, but I doubt he is slapping down 100k to enter these high rollers. It's fairly widely known that most of the players just have a fairly small percentage of themselves in these things. So, assuming Dom's percentage was less than 50%, which I guess it was, then yeah, this was his biggest score. Also, just in terms of number of buy-ins, you know, people marvel about somebody winning 3.8 million in 100k, but at the end of the day, it's only 38 buy-ins. It's the same as winning 38k in a 1k. Whereas the Venom is just a 2.5k or 2.6, I think. And you know, so that's he won like 700 buy-ins in that. So that's another aspect to it as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously, almost no professional poker player plays a high roller completely, 100k high roller completely on their own roll, doesn't swap with anyone. Whereas most of the pros who play the Venom do just play on their own roll.
Exactly. Well, look over to the controversy now. Midway through this game, bots were discovered to be playing, one of which was the second biggest stack actually in the tournament. The decision was made on the fly by ACR to blind off the stacks which were run by bots and redistribute any money won by those bot accounts to the players in the tournament, basically giving players pay jumps or ladder jumps for the number of spots that the bots took up. I'm not quite sure what was the best way to handle this one personally, since it was discovered in game. But I'll put it to you, Dara. Should players who were bust by a bot be recompensed somehow also?
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult one. Everybody in the tournament is obviously affected by the presence of the bot, but if you're bust by a bot, it does feel that you were a particular victim. Yeah, I think probably some additional compensation for the people who were bust by the bot might have been a good idea. I'm surprised they didn't actually wheel Chris Moneymaker out for another video to explain to us that if even though they caught these bots, that's the end of it. There's no more bots. But seriously, like, it's very difficult to know what to do in these situations because everybody is affected. Similarly, even the decision to let the stacks blind out, you know, maybe that was for technical reasons. Maybe they had no way of physically removing the stacks. So all they could do was just stop them from playing, so they were going to blind out. But that obviously gives an advantage to everybody who's at their table now over the other people in the tournament. It does introduce this additional element of variance. If you're unlucky enough to be busted by the bot, you feel a grievance. If you're lucky enough to be at the table of the bot when they are forced to sit out and blind out, you're at an advantage. But you know that in itself is kind of random. It's not like they forced anybody to be at the table or didn't give everybody an equal opportunity to be at the table. So I mean, the problem of bots is definitely a major, almost existential threat to online poker. So it's very bad optics. I think probably ACR did about the best that they could do in the circumstances.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been unusual for there to be a sort of a retroactive addressing of the issue, but the fact that it came up in game, I guess this is like a 3-day tournament, I think, and I think it came up after day one. So yeah, you know, obviously complicates matters. Well, look, anyway, scandal it may be, and continued bot issues ACR might be having, it doesn't take away from the phenomenal result by Dominik Nitsche, whose DTO app, actually, I must say, is my personal favorite piece of kit. We haven't mentioned this for a while on the show. It seems like a good opportunity to do so. You can use bonus code CHIPRACE for significant reductions to a subscription on DTO, and I really do recommend it. To whatever extent I could say I've kept up with the game in the last few years, it is mostly down to DTO app and Dara O'Carney, of course, as well, who always keeps me on the right path. But yeah, but if you don't have Dara O'Carney, you know, in your GMs handy, DTO app is a pretty good bit of kit to pick up. Want to do a little results roundup now. Monaco EPT has just concluded, crowning a winner in Dutchman Dirk van Looyk, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who defeated Bulgarian Boris Angelov in an epic heads-up match that could have gone either way, frankly. It just went back and forth for hours and hours. There was a deep run for former chip race guest Adrian Mateos in this one. He ended up busting in 11th on the penultimate day. He made a huge bluff, ultimately got called, sort of fell on his sword in a sense. David Doherty took 16th in that one, another deep run for David, who is a big part, actually, I want to say, of a BBC poker documentary coming out next month. We've actually canned an episode with the other star of that documentary, Neil Farrell, which we hope will be the next episode of The Lock-In. The reason we already recorded it is the BBC were going to put that one out a couple of months ago and actually held it back until the summer. So we're going to try and sync up nicely and also not break any rules. Because, as bad as copyright infringement and things could be, I reckon if you mess with the BBC, Darry, you're in a much bigger bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't want to stick on the BBC. Hopefully the documentary does come out soon, because if it doesn't, and we put that episode out in a couple of years, we're suddenly going to look a lot younger, and people are going to serious continuity issues between the episodes around it. But yeah, no, it's a very good documentary. I'm looking forward to it coming out, and David Doherty does come across really, really well in it. I know David basically it wasn't his bust out, but the hand that did the damage was one of these not quite all in bluffs, leaving one big blind behind. And then when the guy shoves on you, you have to fold and leave yourself with the one big blind. That's becoming a bigger and bigger thing now. More and more good players are doing it. So we're going to see some more of those types of plays, probably even percolating down to lower levels.
Yeah, no doubt we will. It's obviously a smart move. That one chip can spin you up, but can also get you ladders. And when you're down to the last 16, like he was, there are ladders around, and every opportunity to turn what is a single chip into an extra bit of money, very important to do so. And yeah, as good as that BBC documentary is, our episode of The Lock-In featuring Neil Farrell is also amongst our best work. So please check that one out when it comes out. In other former chip race guest results in Monte Carlo, Maria Konnikova took second in a 1K side for 52K, while Jamie Flynn was runner-up in the 3K mystery bounty for a career best 160K, including bounties. There was also an Irish Poker Tour event last weekend, which I know Dara is going to tell us more about because he attended it. To give a few of the headline results of that one, Peter Burnett took down the Monster main event in Dublin for 25 grand after a three-way deal with Massimo Piccini and Carl Cullen. Friend of the show, the informed Aidan Quinlan got fourth there. Talented up-and-comer Johnny McCullough chopped the high roller with Andy Black. Dara, tell us more.
Yeah, there were quite a few results for people we know. Carl Cullen, who was involved in the three-way chop in the main. Carl's been on a bit of a run recently. Some people might remember him as the guy that former guest Pádraig O'Neill, aka Smidge, bubbled in the big 3K here back in November. Since then, he's actually been on a very good run, just quickly flicking through his hand and mob. He followed that up with a fairly deep run in WSOP circuit event in San Remo. Then he got second in the European Deep Stack, which almost all the headlines were Lucky Mo going back to back Tommy Galazunas, but it was actually Carl that he beat heads up for what was Carl's career best score at the time of 27K. He had fifth at a turbo side event at the Irish Open this year. Going back not too long ago, just a year ago, he was also second in another IPT event, also in the Green Isle. Carl's a very, very popular figure around the Dublin circuit. He plays he's a good, likable working class lad who plays a type of street poker that does very well. He has a lot of wins on his record, in small buy-in tournaments around Dublin. So it was great to see Carl go deep as well. And obviously Aidan is on a real heater at the moment. He followed up his Irish Open deep run with, I think it was fourth in the super high roller at the Malta Poker Festival. And now this latest one, which he actually pretty much max later edged the last flight and spun up from one big blind at one stage. In fact, he went into the chip leaders. He went into the final table as a commanding chip leader. And it was looking good from that point, but then he got cooler at forehand at kings into aces. great run for Aiden. Aiden is on a great run. I know he's going to Vegas this summer as well. So fingers crossed for some deep runs for him there.
Absolutely. How many players played that monster, Dara? I know it got big numbers.
Yeah, it was 1,850, I think was the final number, which is just a phenomenal number. That event is going from strength to strength. Some of the side events just got amazing numbers too. If I look quickly at it was 1858 was actually the number. And the 8-pat got 448. That was won by Stephen Campbell, who is part of the younger crew. Let's call them the new Irish firm, centered around Simon Wilson, Stephen Keogh, Connor, Johnny McCullough, who chopped the high roller, or the super high roller, as they were calling it, with Andy Black. So that's a very exciting development for Irish poker, that there is this crew of players who are coming through now, and it seems like they're all getting results. It's one of those things that once a few guys in the group start getting results, it spurs the others on, shows them what's possible, and makes them sort of work harder to start getting results as well.
Yeah, well said. Want to give a shout out as well to Carl Cullen. I remember playing against him on the IPO final table a little over a year ago, not the last IPO, but it was the year before last. And I was very impressed, exactly how you described him there, Dara. Just very impressed with the way he went about his business. Quite an exploitative style, but really, really understood what he could get away with. And yeah, very impressed with some of the lines he took. Definitely one to watch, as well as his bankroll gets bigger. That concludes this episode of the Chip Race. I leave you with a reminder that the Chip Race series, which is on every night this week, has a 7K leaderboard attached and a 2K winners free roll for all the champions. There will also be Dara O'Kearney books. I should say Dara O'Kearney and Barry Carter books for the Bubble Boys and Bubble Girls. So lots of added value for that 200K series. I am also, despite the fact that he didn't fucking show up, going to give one last plug to the festival series, which takes place in Rozvadov, May 31st to June 9th. Malta from September 8th to 15th, and Bratislava November 18th to 24th. Our guest this week has not been Franke von Zweiberg. Dara O'Kearney, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Frankie for not showing up.